There we go. Let's see if I can get this backlighting thing resolved here. Hi everybody, good evening. And as if on cue, my computer was booting up and I was thinking how perfect the timing was tonight because one of the things we're going to talk about is cicadas, and my gosh, they were singing up a storm until like 8:03 as my computer was doing this. They shut down. But with that said, I guess, we can work with that because it does show how they are part of the D. What, Meredith? I didn't quite catch what you said. But the cicadas, at about 8:03, they shut down. Now, as we get a little further into the summer, later in July and then into August and September, the night shift is going to get louder and louder. Right now, the katydids aren't quite big enough. There's not a lot of crickets, too, that are in full song yet, but that will get louder, and we'll call attention to it in future meetings that we have. I did, though, since we were talking about cicadas, I want to take advantage of the light while we have it to show you what I found the other day. Now, this at first looks like the shell of a cicada, and it is, but it's not empty. This is a cicada that had a little bit of bad luck. So what we're starting to hear right now, and they just started singing within the last, I would say, week or so, maybe week to 10 days. The annual cicada. So we're not in a periodical cicada year. The 17-year cicadas. We had a little blip in some areas. Was that last year? No, I think it was in 2020. 2024 is when they are due to emerge in this area again. What we're seeing now and what we see every year are the annual cicadas. Doesn't mean that they only have a 1-year life cycle, though. The best estimates are anywhere from 2 to 5 years. These guys are underneath the ground. Now, let's see if I can hold this in such a way. You know what, you'd really have to kind of see this in person. I'm going to put it up as close. See, it gets blurry. He does have, he or she, I should say, has its mouth part folded down against its underside. That was the piercing and sucking mouth part that sustained it for those 2 to 5 years, living on tree roots. As they emerge, that sticks around. It doesn't change. Caterpillars, they go from a chewing mouth part to a sipping mouth part. This stays the same because this insect just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It doesn't actually pupate. So it could use that. Had it lived, it would use that mouth part to still feed on the occasional plant juice. But really at this time, what cicadas want to do is find a mate. And the way they do that is by making sounds. And since they are starting to sing now, I thought it would be a good time to do a little refresher on what they sound like and how to identify. I chose the main ones we hear in Kane County. It's 4 different species, and so let me see if I can pull that up, and we will make sure we can hear the sound, and we'll start from this current slide. So yeah, it is time for cicadas. See what I did there? The cicadas, so, we're used to hearing about how the crickets and the katydids, the grasshoppers, how they stridulate or they rub 2 body parts together to make sound. Cicadas don't do that. I found this neat graphic that shows how rather than rubbing, say, legs together or wings together or legs on wings, the male cicada, whose abdomen is really like a big echo chamber, has these two organs, one on either side. They're called tymbals. And they're really like stiff ribs that by using muscles in the abdomen, they can pull those in and snap them back out again. What it's always reminded me of, and I tried one time to make a little visual aid, and it was more distracting than anything else, but it was the pop-up seal on a baby food jar, and I would click it in and out. Get my dog's attention, but it didn't really serve to make the same sound that a cicada does. They're good at what they do. They're the experts. But what we're hearing when the cicadas are singing is these tymbals being pulled in and out, and those vibrations that are created vibrate. They echo within that abdomen, which produces a considerable volume. The loudest insects in the world are cicadas. Some of them, the ones we have around here are pretty loud, but there are some in other parts of the world that are as loud as lawnmowers. So well over 100 decibels. So really impressive sounds coming from this group of insects. So with that said, it is possible to identify them by the songs that they sing. You can also identify them by looking at them, but I actually find it easier to use the sound. You'll notice as we go through these 4 slides that there is a marked similarity between the 4 to the casual observer. Now, those of you who maybe majored in cicadas, you could probably debate me on that. But suffice it to say, they've got a lot of green on them, and they've got some black on them. They all have the same general shape. Oh, one is singing now. I don't know if the mic is picking that up, but one did decide to have one last go at it before it gets dark. So it's the males that are doing the calling, and it's the females that are doing the listening. This first one up is Linne's cicada. It is probably, at least here in suburbia, our most abundant species. It's actually what's singing behind me here. I don't know if I held the mic up. That might actually be better than the recording I have. If you heard that salt shaker or lawn sprinkler vibrato, that's what identifies the Linne's cicada. I try to think of little reminders, connections that I can make to help keep these different sounds straight. And for this one, so Linne does refer to Carl Linnaeus, and I tell myself that Linne likes salt because of the salt shaker. I'll play this recording too, so you can hear it on your listening device. Now, like crickets and grasshoppers and any insects that are active outdoors, they are very subject to the ambient temperatures, and that has an effect on how they perform. So warm temperatures, faster tempo, cooler temperatures, slower tempo. It's really noticeable when we look at the crickets, especially the one we call the temperature cricket, the snowy tree cricket. You listen for 13 seconds, and then I believe you add 40 to whatever the number of chirps that you hear, and then you end up with a pretty accurate estimate of the temperature, listening to that one type of cricket, the snowy tree cricket. Some people have actually taken that formula and modified it with a different number of seconds and a different number that you add to determine the temperature using other species too. But anyway, I'm getting way off track. We're talking about cicadas. This is probably our largest cicada in addition to being our most common cicada. Now, let's go on to our next one here. Dog day cicada. I cannot hear this without thinking of, and those of you who went to U of I and experienced class in August on the 3rd floor of a building without any air conditioning, you might relate to this too. I can remember sitting in class, it's 100 degrees, 100% humidity, and these dog day cicadas would be singing outside on the quad. It's a whiny tone. Those timbals are vibrating so rapidly that you can't really hear any sort of vibrato at all. Let's listen again. So if we were to measure this one side by side with the LINNE'S cicada, it would be notably smaller, but look at this insect and then let's flick back. Look at that insect. I mean, there's similarities. Some of those marks are variable. There's a lot of individual design variation in these guys, but LINNE'S is larger, Dog Day is smaller. This, you know, I'm seeing we've got that black bar back again. Boy, I wish I knew how to get rid of that. But what that's telling us is that it sings in the afternoon. Some of these you can tell what they're up to by the time of day that they're singing. Now our next one, also readily recognizable, especially if you, like I did, grew up in a neighborhood that had a scissor grinding man that would come by. Once or twice a year, and during the warm weather months, this man would come down our street. He always was dressed in black hat, black coat, black pants, and he was pushing this black box that had a bell on it that he would ring, and then it had a grinding wheel. And you'd bring your scissors, your knives out to the curb, and he would sharpen them right there on the spot. I can remember the sound of that wheel turning around and around, and it sounded a little bit like this. So, you know, when you start to really pay attention, you start to notice these differences that aren't really all that subtle. Doesn't sound like a salt shaker, doesn't sound like a whine. This one has a very distinctive rhythm to it, that crescendo of pulsing. It sounds just like a grinding wheel going around and around and around. Now our last one here is the lyric cicada, and despite its name, I think it's the least lyrical of the species that we're talking about. To me, it sounds like a cicada with sore throat. It's a little hoarse. It's described in the books as being buzzy and rattling. Here we go. Goes on and on and on. This is the longest song of our local cicadas can last as long as a minute. Uh, it's common along waterways. Maybe that's why I sometimes hear this one in downtown St. Charles. If you're ever sitting at Altar Brewing there on First Street and you hear cicadas kicking up, it could be that you're hearing these guys here, the lyric cicadas. So that's that. I'm going to stop this screen share. Looks like we had a couple of comments here. Loud and clear, good. Yeah, and so it's funny. I guess the day shift is still singing. A couple more in the background here. I guess they were just on a little break. Maybe I interrupted their recording when I set up shop here. Anyway, got lots of other things I wanted to share with you, so I'm going to go ahead and share another screen that shows, let's see, what I've been seeing the last week and what you have been seeing over this last week. Kim, I have to thank you for this picture. I'm not sure if you're with us tonight. I didn't look at the sign-in sheet, but it is time for Michigan lilies. Now, last week I had sent and written like a script, I guess you'd call it, to a senior group that was going to be coming to St. Charles from Huntley. And they were going to be doing a walk in Delnor Woods, so I sat there with my eyes closed and I just sort of described everything that I could picture as you walk a loop going from west to east. And I mentioned that the Michigan lilies would be in bloom, but I'm not sure if they were, because they were there last Friday. And this picture from you, Kim, and then Laura, I know you sent one. For some reason it wouldn't load up, but I went back into the Good-Natured Archives and I found one from Delnor Woods, very similar to the one you took. This one's from 2020, but this is the time that these lilies, and this is a native lily, this isn't an ornamental bulb. They're a woodland species. I have to say, for a long time, I called these Turk's cap lilies. And Laura, you and Kim both called them Michigan lilies. Our restoration crew calls them Michigan lilies. The Latin name is Michiganense. So yeah, these are Michigan lilies. I was curious of how I went down that Turk's cap route, and on Illinois wildflowers.info, it says for many years the Michigan lily was not distinguished from the Turk's cap lily, even though there are several characteristics that can be used to distinguish them, including the following. So those of you who travel around the state, keep this in mind. The Michigan lily has a more northern distribution. The anthers of the Michigan lily are less than 1/2 inch in length, while the anthers of the latter species are 1/2 inch or longer, and they are more slender in shape. The tepals of the Michigan lily curve backwards so that their tips are located near the base of the flower. So we can see that here. While the Turk's cap curve backwards so that their tips are located behind the base of the flower. Okay, so that's another difference, and I love how botanists look at these things. The Michigan lily usually has yellow bulbs, while the latter lily usually has white bulbs. The Turk's cap lily sometimes has a 6-pointed green star on the throats of its flowers, while the flowers of the Michigan lily never have this characteristic. And finally, number 6, the Turk's cap lily is usually taller and blooms less reliably than the Michigan lily, at least in Illinois. So, again, blooming in Kim's yard, blooming at Delnor Woods. Now's the time, folks, if you want to see these lilies, get out and check them out. because they are quite noticeable. We're past the stage of the woodland, the ephemerals, all those spring ephemerals we talked about, although we are going to talk about one in a little bit. But so the color in the woodland floor right now is predominantly green. But these guys, they're an orangish. This one was pinkish orange, very striking, blooming right now.
Pam, this is Kim.
Yes.
I'd say one of those lilies of mine, the one on the right's been out a week, and the one on the left just only been out 2 days. So who knows? I had
Wow.
there was a third one, but for the left there, but for some reason it dried up. I don't know why, it just didn't come out. So, and I was just gonna just to be funny, but I mean, I would think that the political correct police will probably not let people call it a Turk's
Oh,
cap
Turk's
lily
cap
anymore.
anymore. Yeah, it'll
Yeah,
probably have to be like the spongy lily or something,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Good points.
yeah,
Yeah, so beautiful flowers, and they look, they look like a hothouse ornamental, and here
they
they
do.
are, native to northern Illinois. Very cool. So let's go from native to non. This was a little pickle I found myself in a couple of weeks ago. Went out to survey a site for Rusty Rodeo. May have mentioned that last week. That'll be coming up the first Saturday in August, and we're hoping to do the event at Primrose Farm this year. And it's the event where we go into Fearsing Creek and we capture as many of the invasive rusty crayfish as we can find. Well, last year we did it at Fearsing Creek Park, and it was wonderful in terms of attendance. We had over 100 people fishing out these invasive critters, and it was great weather-wise. It was great volunteer-wise. The one thing it wasn't great for was the bed of the creek. The bottom of the stream really took a beating. Several mussels, native live freshwater mussels, got crunched, including a somewhat unusual species called a fluted shell. So there was a lot of disturbance to the stream bed. So this year we thought, well, let's move it someplace where we can spread the impact out. Our first choice was Mount St. Mary's, but the park is booked all summer long with weddings and graduation parties, reunions, you name it. We thought, well, maybe we can do it over at Riverside Bowie Park on the east side of the Fox, east bank of the Fox River, over right at the border with Geneva. There's rusty crayfish there as well, but there's no parking. And if we're going to have 100 people, we need a place for them to put their vehicles. So actually, at the suggestion of our park safety team, we're going to try it here at Primrose. But you can see we're going to have to do a little site prep. I went on a little walkabout and took about 6 feet into this and found I was swimming in reed canary grass. Phalaris is how a lot of people around here refer to it. And it's funny, this is a plant that has competing views, as is so often things. Most of the things that we call invasive today were brought here for a reason. Last week when we were talking about ladybugs, and I mentioned the Asian lady beetles, they were brought here to fight aphids. A lot of dandelions, the dandelions that a lot of people consider weeds in their yard, they were brought here as food. They're rich in calcium. This plant, reed canary grass, it's actually it's a good forage plant for livestock. Horses in particular do well grazing on reed canary grass. At Primrose Farm, I think it was 3 farm managers ago. It goes back several years, but the gentleman who was managing the farm at the time, he actually encouraged the growth of reed canary grass because of it being a valuable forage crop. Now, if you look at reed canary grass from the perspective of natural areas management, this is a highly invasive and really difficult to eradicate plant because look at these seeds. When I walked through this thick reed canary grass, it was well over my head. We're only in the very beginning of July, and this is, I would say, close to 7 feet in height. I was covered with seeds. I looked like I had some bizarre skin condition, and I had to try and wipe. I had a couple of Taco Bell, I think they were napkins. They were dusty napkins that have been in the park van for a long time. I was using those to wipe myself off so I didn't cause a further infestation of reed canary grass on the west side of town before I went to the grocery store the night I did this. But so the seeds are dropping. Seeds are fed upon by different birds. As I was walking through this, I did stir up several deer. There was a buck that I caught a glimpse of. I saw his velvet antlers as he kind of jumped. You know how they spring as they run. Shooed him away. He must have been laying down. I came across a couple other places where this was matted down, where deer had probably been laying. And then on my trip back, bushwhacking through this, I scared up 2 more deer. So it is probably grazed upon by them too, and it offers them wonderful cover. But again, trying to get rid of it, it spreads by seeds, it spreads by runners underneath the ground. It really can take over an area. It's a plant of moist areas, so it's a big problem in our wetlands. Way back when, and we're talking probably 20 years ago, Fearsome Creek Fen, its first incarnation, or its first restoration attempt, there was a grant, the Park District procured a grant, and the reed canary grass was scraped away along with several inches of soil just to get rid of it. I remember driving by there. I wasn't working here at the time, and I thought, what in the world? They're not going to build down there, are they? You know, it looked like a construction site, but what they were doing was scraping away the soil. Nowadays, we do have herbicides that are suitable for use, and application methods that are suitable for use in wet areas, so we're not putting poisons into a system that's already kind of vulnerable with all the water that's there. But anyway, I just thought you would appreciate a nature nerd's eye view of this grass. Keep an eye out for it. Once you start to see it, it's just like some of our other invaders. Once you get to know what it looks like, you start seeing just how prevalent it is, and it really helps grow your appreciation for the restoration ecologists that are that are trying to fight this what we see as an invasive plant. Horse people, they might feel different. And this was a happy little coincidence the other day. I had a couple of banana peels, some lettuce that had gotten a little too far wilted. I couldn't revive it anymore. I had a few things to go out to the compost pile. Well, I had the door open, the sliding door open, to let the dogs out, and I hadn't closed it, and when I grabbed this plastic bag that had the compost material in it, I saw this really cool looking fly, and I looked it up, and it's called a compost fly. I love it when names align with the situation. Now we can see it's a fly. It's got kind of a waspy shaped body, but look at those eyes and those tiny little antennae there. Can't see the mouth, but it would have that kind of like a stamp pad type mouth that flies use, and it feeds. It hangs out around compost material. I see I managed to get a dog hair in the picture here too, but it's just a cool looking fly. By the time I got my lip balm out so you could see for scale, and I also got a toothpick so I could move that dog hair out of the way, and the fly flew. I think it flew outside. But anyway, these guys are around doing a good job helping out the community, the ecosystem that evolves when you create a compost pile. Now let's go on. What else did we see this week? Going back to Delnor Woods, so we had, gosh, I would say over 100 Potawatomi camp kids at Delnor Woods this past week. We didn't really have a good chance to do a lot of nature interpretation because of the volume of kids. It was really more crowd control, and it turned into a march through the woods as opposed to a, hey, let's stop and look at this or that. But as we were going into the woods, I saw this beetle, and it was on its back. And I it was more of a mercy stop. I picked it up just to get it off the trail. But then when I flipped it over, I thought, wow, this thing is really cool looking. And did some digging, and digging on the internet, not digging in the soil. But I looked at different features. What we're looking at here is a beetle that's in the scarab family within the beetle order, the coleopterans. And I think, I'm pretty sure the genus Geotrupes, which is a really cool Greek word. It means earth borer. This is a group of beetles that is known to live around fungus, live around dung, live in leaf litter. And that's exactly where I found it. It was in the leaves on the trail right as we were walking into the woods. It's got some pretty groovy antennae too, although we had clenched them closed. But you can see there's kind of 1, 2, 3, there's like 3 little horns on the end of the antennae. And then the reason I think it's splendidus for the species, which is splendid with a US on the end, the description on Bug Guide talks about this pronotum, which is the shield up here by the head. It says it is unevenly punctate, which means it has uneven little punctures or divots all over it. And that looks pretty much like what we've got there. And then it also says that the stripes on the wing covers have distinct punctures as well. And sure enough, if you look closely, you see that. So in my head, this is now the splendid earth borer. And I went back after I moved it off the trail because I didn't really have time to appreciate. And you can see this is my hand. This isn't a huge beetle. I would say the overall length was maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. I carefully laid it off to the side. I thought the way it was crawling around, laying on its back, that maybe it would still be there, but it did crawl off to safety. I did, in reading some of the references online, other people mentioned finding these beetles on their back. So maybe that's something they do. If any of you are familiar with the beetle and know more about it, feel free to chime in. And if I learn anything else about it, I'll bring that back to you in a future program. But very striking, that metallic green sheen on this beetle was very cool. Made me wistful for the days of finding stag beetles. Speaking of, don't have a picture, but it is stag beetle season, so if you happen to have some in your yard and you have some extras you're trying to get rid of, let me know, because I would like to try one more time for some captive rearing of the stag beetles that we have in this area, the ones we call pinching bugs. So if you have some, let's talk. But let's move on, because as we wandered our way through Delnor Woods, we also saw the remnants of this year's Mayapples. Now, this is a woodland wildflower that's not quite as ephemeral as some of the others. It gets on the mature plants, which I think they have to be about 5 years old or so, before they grow 2 leaves on their stem. And then they put out a white flower, and if that flower gets pollinated, look what we've got dangling down here in the center. Let's zoom in a little bit. In fact, let's get even closer. This is what gives the flower, this plant, its name. It flowers in May, hence the May part of the name, but then this apple-like fruit forms as we get into late June and July. This is the fruit that I've always heard you can pick and you can eat. You can make it into mayapple jelly, but you have to do it at the right time. It needs to be ripe, and ripe for mayapple is yellow and somewhat soft. Now this was still, to my eye, pretty green, and it was not soft. It was very firm. So if you're thinking about making mayapple jelly, or if you know how to do it, the time is approaching where these are going to be ripe. So, another day last week, I was over to a friend's house helping trim some trees, and I stopped short because look what I found. This was a basswood, actually a linden tree, and on the underside of the leaf, here was this blessed event happening right before my eyes. These little first instar stinkbugs were coming out of their eggs. Now, let's see, I'll zoom in here. Not exactly sure what kind of stink bug. I did a little bit of comparing, and it sort of looked like these might be green stink bug nymphs in the first instar, but I can't be positive on that. Of course, the most common stink bug we have in this area is the brown marmorated stink bug, and although it looked like their first instar, or their first stage, as these bugs grow, they eat and they molt or shed their skin, and then they get larger. Each stage after they shed their skin is called an instar. Instar, I-N-S-T-A-R. And so I can't say for sure what these are, but it was pretty cool. And of course, then it stopped the tree trimming operation because I was working with several other nature nerds, and we had to ooh and ah and carry on for quite a bit. That we'd seen these bugs and their egg cases right here underneath the linden leaf. So then I was making some rounds again the other day, heading towards Primrose Farm from our service facility up on Bolcom Road, and lo and behold, what do we find but the cranes of Crane Road. So we've got mom and dad, and then flanking little junior, a young sandhill crane is called a colt, and I don't know for sure how they got that name, but I did read one reference that said it's because of the way they walk. They're kind of ungainly, like a colt, like a young horse. They have those long legs in comparison to their bodies. But let's zoom in a little bit here. This pair, and I'm pretty sure it's the same one year after year. They've been here for several years now. Cranes can live in their teens and 20s, provided they don't have something tragic happen, like they get hit by a car. I was really glad I was the only vehicle on the road right now, because these guys were not in any hurry at all. I remember the first time we heard about the cranes of Crane Road. It was actually from one of our park safety officers, and he called me. It was around dusk, and he wanted to know if I knew of any emu farms in the area. And I said, I can't think of any emu farms. Why do you ask? And he said, well, because there's these big birds, and they're standing in the middle of the road, and I can't get them to move, and they look like emus. And he texted me a picture, and we realized he was seeing sandhill cranes. So this is a bird, this is a species that not so very long ago, we're going to say maybe 20 years ago, was still on the state endangered species list, and they have waged a remarkable comeback. And there's cranes on Crane Road, there's cranes on Randall Road, there's cranes on Route 25. I saw some today. Where was I coming back from? I was coming back from Naperville, and there was some in some turf grass on the side of Butterfield Road. So, yeah, keep your eye out. If they have had a successful nesting, they will have one, sometimes two. Cranes typically lay 2 eggs. Usually one of those eggs will make it to this stage. There's predation that occurs. Cranes are not that kind to each other, and sometimes there'll be some siblicide that goes on. One young crane will take out its siblings. So, anyway, cranes, this is about the size, so not quite big enough to take flight with mom and dad, but certainly growing every day. Sandhill cranes. So, Miss Bonnie, got to thank you for this. Along came this spider. Let's zoom in here. This is a Wolfie, a wolf spider, and she's carrying her, at this point, egg sac attached to her rump with strands of silk. That little white lump there usually holds somewhere around 80 to 100 little spiderlings that are sometimes referred to as slings. Once those eggs hatch, we go to the next phase in their development, which is taking a piggyback ride on mom. Now, this picture, I tried to zoom in as best I could, but the mom, being protective as she was of her brood, she was not really cooperating much. But here's the little ones, and they will ride around on her and stay with her through, is it through their first molt or their first stage of development? They ride around on her for a few days. They do scatter, though. I know I had a friend who is not a fan of spiders, and I don't know why these people always get all the luck and I never do, but this person had a wolf spider in their house, replete with babies on her back, and as they tried to shoo it away, the babies all jumped off because I guess they thought it was Armageddon or something, and so then she had not just one spider with a bunch of babies on its back, but she had one spider with a bunch of babies all over the kitchen. So they will abandon ship if they feel like mom is going down. But this is also a common sight at this time of the year. I believe that's it for these slides. Oh, no. That's right. We got two more things. So again, this is Laura and Jerry. Remember last week we looked at the nature of Leroy oaks, and we looked at the frogs. We looked at leopard frogs, and we looked at green frogs. Well, you also found a bunch of damselflies, right? And this one, Jerry, you were 100% on this. This is the American ruby spot. This is a male. Female is more drably colored. I don't know if I can zoom in on this one, but you not only saw this, but you found a little mating conglomeration too. Is that right?
Pam,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but someone has their audio on and it keeps
Oh gosh.
we can't always hear you. So I think someone's name's Trisha. I'm not sure, but even right
Okay.
now,
Everybody check
her
your
audio's
mutes.
on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
I did just mute it, but I'll mute it again.
hey,
Yeah, Pam, it was more like kind of a mating orgy that was going on.
well, let me see if I can find that video because it was really cool. Let's see. I thought I downloaded it, but hold on. Let me.
Fortunately, I just had my iPhone with me, so the quality isn't very good.
Oh, Jerry, you're such a perfectionist photographer. What you say is barely acceptable is really awesome to the rest of us.
Okay.
Let's see. No, that was.
And at one point, Laura, how many did we see? Like 3 or 4 at least of these mating, as Laura put it, orgies. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, and it looked too like there was some egg depositing going on too. I saw some abdomens tipping in the water. And I also heard a delightful serenade.
That was Kate and I.
So there's a song, folks, that is it's helpful in remembering the body parts of the. All right, let's see. How do I stop this? All right. It's to the tune of head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And I don't know, Laura, you want to try singing it with me?
Everyone has a slightly different version. I do mine for Delnor. I can't sing also, but head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen, head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen, my antennas, my legs, my pretty little wings, head, thorax, abdomen, abdomen.
There you have it. So head, thorax, abdomen. This is what the even the most supremely degreed entomologists use to decide if it's an insect or not. But it has those 3 body parts. So you learn the song, you learn the parts, you learn how to identify the whether it's an insect or not. And once you've established that, then you can go on and figure out from there what order and what family and things like that. So it's the kind of song too, it pops into your head at all sorts of times. I always find myself humming it, in the shower or in the grocery store, that sort of thing. But let's see. I think I've got the video pulled up here, so I'm going to try and see, find the right screen here and do another screen share. And oh boy, how did I get all these opened up? Where's the video? All right, let me go back. Let me close a couple of these. Close this one. Close this one. All right, that'll give me fewer choices. And why am I not? I don't think this is the right one. Can you guys see a blurry video?
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right. All right, let me. Okay, the window is closed. All right. Maybe I go with this one and then. How about now?
No.
No.
At least not on mine. You know what I thought was weird, Pam, was that I'd never seen this before. Was the creek was low, so there were some grasses, like growing, well, like aquatic grasses growing, up a little bit, and some of the damselflies looked like they were almost drowning on it, and then the other damselflies would come and their abdomen or their body actually would go perpendicular down, and it looked like onto the almost drowning damselflies.
Wow.
It was quite strange. And I didn't know, okay, are those just some that are floating above and laying their eggs? Or they seem to be putting their body perpendicular down almost onto the other ones that were half in the water. So I couldn't really, because I've seen, can you describe damselfly mating? I guess is my question.
Well, they form like a heart shape because the male has to bring, he actually clamps himself onto the female's head and then bends around.
Okay.
And it's it's pretty crazy looking. And it's funny because I'm looking at it right now, and what I'm seeing is this orgy, and I'm definitely seeing some ovipositing going on as the females are bending their abdomen tips into the water. All right, let me see if I download this. Upload. Moves. All right. There's got to be a way. So I've seen it like 6 times now. There's got to be a way that I can choose to share this.
I just forwarded it to you on your phone.
Okay. Well, I suppose I could just hold it up to the screen, right? All right, I'm going to try one more time to share. Share. Wow. There's a robin that is not at all happy. Oh, here we go. Now you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Ha! All right, let's back it up. All right, so this is a riffle at Fearson Creek at Leroy Oaks. And now Mackenzie Serenade in the background. So see how those tips are bending? That one there on the left is bending her abdomen into the water. She's laying eggs right there.
Ah. Okay.
Well, now hold on. Let me. But she's no okay. Hold on. Let's watch it one more time. There's a male attached to her head. So
Yeah, that's what I didn't get.
I have other videos where it looks like the males are drowning the females. It's crazy. And they're on grasses instead of this rock type thing.
Okay. I wonder. Whoa. I wonder if there is. Let's just back it up. Just gonna go viral. So
Yes. That's what we'll be singing all night.
let me think about this because frog. So when frogs mate, the fertilization that occurs is external. But I thought with damselflies the fertilization was internal. But those curved abdomen tips going into the water looks like the female is putting eggs in the water, but the male is attached to her head.
It was quite strange. And especially on the grassy one that you don't have, there are a lot of them, and I was a bit flabbergasted. That's
Well, maybe this is a topic we pick up again. We're in the thick of summer. I think this is going to be going on for a while, so I'll see what else I can learn about it. A long time ago, I wrote an article, and I remember the title of it was "I Want to Hold Your Head," you know, like the Beatles song. Oh yeah, I want to hold your head, and it was all about damselflies and this mating wheel that they form when the male clasps onto the female's head. So let's table this for now, and we'll see what else I can learn maybe by next week.
sounds good.
How does it sound? You know what's been happening here? So while I was, goofing around trying to get that video to share, a spider is spinning its web between the tabletop and my leg here on the veranda at the Native Plant Garden at Potawatomi. So I might just have to stay here all week because I really hate to destroy her work, and I wish you could see it. Anyway, let's see. We've got a couple of chats. Do animals eat Mayapples? Raccoons love Mayapples. It's hard to beat them. Well, you know, and I've heard raccoons, and I've also heard deer will eat them as well. So yes, I think besides being in competition with humans to get to them, there's a lot of animals that are waiting for them to ripen as well. But it is a neat reminder. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago that we were kind of chomping at the bit, waiting for these spring ephemerals to pop up so that we knew winter was officially over. And now here we are in the midst of summer, and most of those ephemerals are gone, and some, like the Mayapples, this is their last gasp. They're putting those seeds out there, and then they'll be gone too. Does anybody else have any questions, observations, things they've seen that they'd like to share with the group? If not, I think I'm going to sit here a while longer and see what the spider's up to. Maybe I'll sit here all week. Who knows? Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I hope to see you back here next week. Thanks,
Thanks,
so much,
Pam.
everybody.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Everybody.
Thanks,
Night,
Pam.
Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Pam.